This video is briefly going to look at operations with respect to environmental sustainability and consider the impact that organisations the impact that the environment may have on an organisations, and specifically the impact the environment may have on the operations process of a business. So what is environmental sustainability? In a nutshell, it really means that operations need to be shaped around the practices that consume resources today without compromising access to those resources for future generations. Given operations processes are largely and often based around the production of goods, the environmental sustainability and ensuring that there's not a degradation or a depletion of environmental resources is very important for most businesses within their operations process. But the same also goes for businesses that are service-based. So if you think about a production-based business like a manufacturer of some sort, that manufacturer needs to ensure that they're not exploiting the environment and taking advantage of resources, which are going to mean that for future generations they don't have equal access to those resources. And that for that reason we're seeing things like coal-fired power stations, like the Liddell coal-fired power station, being shut down, partly because coal is depleting as a resource, partly because of its impact it has on the environment, but also recognising that there's a depletion of that resource that's going to occur if that power station remains open. But the same also goes for a service-based business. Businesses in the city, in a CBD, for example, businesses there. I think there's a study that found 70% of the costs associated with electricity costs associated with a business operating out of a high-rise building in the city relates to air conditioning. So 70% of their costs. So about environmental sustainability, what could a office do, an office building in the city, whereby where a service is being conducted, an accounting business or a law firm or some such similar business, what could they do in their offices to ensure that they weren't having such a significant impact on the environment, they weren't using so much electricity, and that they were operating their business in a more sustainable fashion? There's an increasing awareness of climate change. It's a very hot topic in political circles and in the business environment as well. And that then has an influence on operations, which leads to consumers being concerned with the use of non-renewable energy, waste production, pollution, recycling, and ultimately the carbon footprint of each individual consumer, but also the carbon footprint of each individual business. There's no hiding from it. There's been a lack of government action on climate change, and that means that a lot of businesses are in fact taking their own action and they're putting in place their own policies, and a lot of those policies relate to the operations process of their business. Just to touch on a couple of things that Qantas have done, nothing overly specific about environmental sustainability, but they are becoming increasingly aware of their impact on the environment and thinking about things that they can do at a business level to be a more environmentally sustainable business. So for example, using biofuels on their A330 flights, teaming up with Tesla to consider or look into or investigate the use of electronic power, so storage of power through batteries, fuel efficient aircraft, investing in more fuel efficient aircraft, the 787s, the A330s, the 737s and the A380s. Options allowing customers to pay more to offset their carbon footprint. So when you purchase a ticket on Qantas, you can effectively donate money to offset your carbon footprint. They're buying aircraft that are lighter so that they're reducing their weight, and that reduces the fuel requirements. Optimizing flight planning, so trying to ensure that the routes that planes are flying are more direct and therefore using less fuel and having less of an impact on the environment. And also smart path systems, which is the same thing really, but just for those specific 737s and 800 aircrafts. So Qantas is trying to put in place and be proactive with respect to the environment and ensuring that they are not overly degrading the environment and making sure that the environment is being protected for future generations.